Tom, you've inspired multiple generations of salespeople and sales trainers, and I'm one of them. Glad to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Tom Hopkins.
Well, Rob, thank you. And I pinch myself when I hear someone come across with all those wonderful things. I go, who's he talking about? And then all of a sudden I realize, my goodness, that is me. Wow. Yeah,
Well,
no, it's exciting. What a life. What a
yeah.
life I've enjoyed, man.
Well, we're going to carve into it a little bit. And Tom, and again, I'm a junior Tom, but when I'm introduced to an audience like you are, I also sort of smile in the background and go, I'm not sure whether to love that guy or punch him in the nose. That's some bio there. But we could have gone and on, Tom. You literally opened the door for guys like me. And I just can't tell you how grateful I am. But I promise no fawning. This is a no fawning podcast. So let's get at it. Your training has impacted so many. Now, I learned from Xerox and I learned from you. But where did you learn from? Where did you come up with these strategies and tactics?
Well, what kind of happened to me was, I was young, 19 years of age, had just gotten into real estate, had been in construction, never had any education, didn't go to college. And I thought, what am I going to do? And fortunately, I went to a program, and man that was in sales invited me to a program. And the instructor, who was famously successful, said, go back to your company and find out who makes the most money, then literally beg them to have you come and listen to what they say to people. And of course, I've always been coachable, Rob. That's one thing. I'm coachable. So I came back to my company, then one of the largest real estate companies in California, found out the highest income earning person, which was a woman named Rose Lane. And I went and begged her. I told her, I said, I'm 19, scared to death, brand new, just got my license, haven't made a dime, but I just would love to meet you. Well, she was so gracious. She not only met me, but she let me come and listen to her go on a listing presentation, then go with her in the car actually and sit as a trainee in the back seat. And of course, back then, Rob, I know this dates me, but there were no recording devices available. So we're all just taking notes. But I took so many notes of what this woman said to people. And the more I listened, I said to myself, we, in essence, are in the word business, because the words that come out of your mouth and go into the person's ear, then into their brain, create emotions and feelings. And if it's done properly, it's a positive acceptance feeling where they want to know more, do business, say yes, and take advantage of the financial or whatever opportunity you're offering them. And so that's kind of my background. And I got into real estate, spent 8 glorious years selling homes. And my last year, I was fortunate, Rob, because everything came together. My manager on November 15th that year calls me in and he says, Tom, are you aware of the numbers you're doing? I says, no, I'm just having a blast, making a lot of money. I love this. And he said, yeah, but we've been adding up your numbers and you are averaging 1 home sold a day for the year. And he said, Tom, it's never been done. And if you can do it, your life will never be the same. Well, of course, that turned me on and I busted my butt. And sure enough, hit 365 home sales in that year. And the company that I worked for, they loved to brag about what people did. So this general manager, he put me on shows, he advertised, he said, this 22, I was 22 at the time, if he can do 365 home sales, averaging 1 a day, it wasn't average because, I might have 2 or 3 in the week, but then for the Saturday and Sunday, the big weekend of real estate, I might do 5 or 6.
Right.
But I busted my backside, Rob, and I sure enough hit the 365. And it was so true because this manager put my name out there and my phone started ringing off the hook because no one could believe it. You
Right.
know, and again, I'm not being braggadocious at all, but back then, if a real estate agent sold one home a week, four a month, they were hot stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, wow, top producers. If they did six a month, they were wow. Well, when they heard I did 30 home sales a month, averaging one a day for a year, my phone went off the hook and they started inviting me. And I spent 2 years, Rob, going to companies, teaching what I said and what I did. And I really didn't charge anybody because I loved it.
Yeah.
I found a truth. If I went out to a company and I poured my guts out and taught them and showed them how to make more money, they would then not only want to know more, but my first book, How to Master the Art of Selling, came out. It sold, well, it's open to 5 million copies because it is what people need to know in selling, what to say to people, how you handle their emotions, how you handle objections, how you take a no into a yes, how you get the check, how you make them walk out thanking you for taking their money for the opportunity. And
Right.
that's what this life is about.
Right.
And so it's just been amazing to help so many people in the field of selling.
Right.
And you know, it's been a lot of years, and this will probably be close to my last year doing seminars, but I've had such a blast. And people in selling, we need this country to realize that almost any company that makes a profit is only doing it because some person has the guts to get out there, put their ego on the line, handle rejection, take the no's, the failures, turn them into yeses, get
Right.
checks, and make money.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was talking to somebody the other day and they were saying, what do you look for in a salesperson? I was on a panel and I heard just some sort of a few younger people saying, well, they have to know the product. They got to know their features and benefits. And I was kind of in an ornery moon, Tom. And they said, what about you, Rob? And I said, what do I look for? I look for somebody who could take a punch. I look for somebody, who can get knocked down, dust themselves off, get back up, put one leg in front of the other, and keep going. The others, I can teach you features and benefits. That's easy. That one's, it's hard to teach somebody and determine if they have that discipline to go down and get up, keep getting up. Do you ever see the movie Cool Hand Luke?
Oh, yeah.
You remember the scene where George Kennedy starts beating up Paul Newman and he won't stay down. And in the
Right.
end, after a brutal beating, George Kennedy walks out of that circle and those guards look scared because they know who's in that camp right now. This guy is not going to quit. And that inspired me. I watched that with my dad. And I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but I thought that's the secret. You just can't stay down. You got to keep getting up.
Well, and you know, I've tried to teach this, Rob. You're so right that failure is just a stepping stone to success. And if you play a game with the art of selling,
Mm-hmm.
to where realizing that if I get someone to say yes and spend the money on my investment or whatever, then I'm going to earn this. Well, great. But I have to realize I must talk to so many people to get that yes. And so what I'm saying is people in selling need to say to themselves, no's are the stepping stones to yeses. So don't let it take you, don't take it personally.
Right.
I mean, I had weeks where it was one of those weeks where everybody that I talked to said no, and I had no income. But then, of course, the next week, because I kept my attitude. And
Right.
that's something that's so important, Rob.
Yeah.
Your attitude on a daily basis will determine the altitude you achieve in success.
Right.
And it's a
Right.
mind thing to
Right.
where you psych up, you realize that, hey, I'm a unique human being that's willing to put my ego on the line every day, handle the rejection necessary to get the yeses I need
Yeah.
to feed my family, make a nice living, build financial independence.
Right.
And so this is kind of the life I've lived. And,
Right.
you know, it's been wonderful. I can't tell you, Rob, the number of letters, the number of calls that my company receives from people that basically say, you know, hey, 22 years ago, I came to your seminar. I was 19. I was doing nothing. And I took your book or your CDs. Back then, I didn't have CDs, tapes. We had tape,
Right.
cassette
Right.
tapes. But
Right.
anyway, and they said, I listen to you in my car every day. I drove to every appointment, hearing your presentation, hearing what to say when they give you an objection. They say, I want to think it over. Here's what you say. It costs too much. Here's what you say.
Right.
I have a friend in the business. Here's what you say. All
Right.
these things are what you say to get them to say no to what they were thinking and yes to your opportunity, which
Yeah.
is what we do in life.
Yeah, and we're going to get tactical, but I'll tell you a funny story. One of the reasons why I got to know you so well is because I came out with my first book in '93, and I'm Jollis. Well, guess who I sit next to in the bookstore when I'm on the shelf? All I got to do is find the 15 Tom Hopkins books, go to the right, and I might be there. And then Who Moved My Cheese came out and sandwiched me on the other side. So I got Hopkins on one side, Johnson on the other, and but at least I know where I can find me if I'm there. The little sliver of Rob. All right. Anyway, let's get tactical for a second. I know you've trained so many professionals, but let's not. What I love about reading about you and what you do, and I think this makes you unique, Tom, is listen, you're entertaining, you're motivational, you're inspirational, but by gosh, you're tactical. There are process behaviors that are measurable. So let's grab one. You're talking to you maybe your best advice for someone who's relatively new to sales. What would you tell them?
Well, first of all, every business has fundamentals. Now, we could be very broad and say football has basically two fundamentals:
Uh-huh.
offense, defense. Golf has certain fundamentals: long game driving, chipping short game, putting real short game. Every sport activity has fundamentals, and selling has seven basic fundamentals. And in your question, the one I want to talk about is called qualification, because this is number two in the art of the seven fundamentals, the art of qualifying a person as to what they should say yes to.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I'll make a broad statement here. Qualification is the art of questioning properly, but having a formula. And for those that are watching us right now, if they'll take the word needs, NE, but don't make it NEE, make it NEADS, because this is the key to qualification, finding out what their true needs are. Now, the NEADS, and the folks watching, I hope you'll make notes, the N stands for the word now. Because tell me what you have now, and I'll tell you a lot about decisions you make. In other words, if I were selling automobiles and you drove in a certain car worth about much, I would say to myself, based on what they've driven in, they'll probably want to spend about this much on the next car. Now, that's not always true. He might walk in and say, Hi, Tom, we're looking for a new car. Did you see me last night on the lottery? I won $21 million. Now the whole game changes. Doesn't matter what he drove in. He's got $21 million.
Right.
So the word now in needs is so important. Give me your past and it'll tell me a lot about your future. The E in need stands for enjoy. What do you like about what you've done in the past? What did you say yes to in investing in that home, in that apartment, in that car? Whatever it is. So you have the now, the enjoy, E, and the A is alter. What would you like to change? And that's what the word alter means. I know what you have now. I know what you enjoyed about getting it. Now, what would you like to change about what you have now as we look to the future investment? So the D is who is the decision maker.
Right.
And this is so important that in qualification that you make sure you have the right person. And you can do this so easily, saying, John, Mary, we're not sure if this makes sense to you, but if going ahead in the future does, is there anyone else you'll get advice from?
Love
And
it.
right away they go, well, yeah, my mom and dad have been around a lot of years and they want to know what we're doing. Well, now I know they aren't the real decision maker.
Right.
I've got to get mom and dad to get them excited about what we're offering. So that's NEAD. And the S is we have the solution.
Right.
We know what they need. We are have now. We know what they enjoy. We know what they want to alter. They are the decision maker. And yes, we have the solution to satisfy the wonderful word need.
Right. I love that. And I love the process. There's something repeatable and predictable for you folks, but you're going to get that in every Tom seminar day book. I promise you, because I've already been reading them. You hit on something. I just want to nick it real fast because people, you're subtle, and I don't want you to be so subtle. When he says, who else? Who else? You notice he doesn't say, are you the one? Because people have egos. And if you hit somebody between the eyes and go, okay, and gee, Tom, are you the guy making the decision? Who was really going to say, no, I'm actually just sort of a second level player here. It's Mr. Johnson over in the corner. No, but when you say, and so who else is involved? You give that person a little breathing space. You let them say, well, I run blah, 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 but we're going to need Mr. Johnson. And look, all we want is the real answer.
That's right. And the words are so important.
Yeah.
Who other than yourself might be involved
Right.
in this decision? Right away, you gentled it.
Right.
It's not like, are you the one that can say yes? Too abrupt.
Right.
Can you say yes to this? Too abrupt.
Yeah.
I'm curious, though, Rob, who other than yourself might be involved
Right.
in this wonderful decision, if it all makes sense?
Right.
And I always threw that at the end.
Yeah.
If it all makes sense. It's like a disclaimer.
Well, it takes the pressure off, doesn't it?
Yes.
I love it.
I plant with, if all this makes sense, who other than yourself might be involved in the decision? Of course, if it all makes sense.
Yeah.
Then, of course, you've now got them to that decision. And there again, you move into the final closing of the transaction, which, of course, is an artist as well.
Right. And we're going to get to that too. But you touched on it a second ago. So we're there and we're getting close. And all of a sudden, the dreaded, it makes some sense there, Tom, but maybe we'd like to think it over just a bit if we could. Okay. I think there's a proactive and a reactive move, but let's react to it. Okay. And then maybe we can talk about how we can try and diffuse it before it comes up. Because I think great salespeople are tactically in the trenches knowing that's coming. But all right, it pops up its head. What do you do?
Well, first of all, you have to realize that most people in investing any amount of money do come to a critical point where they're nervous, they're afraid, do I make the decision? And I want to think it over, and it comes at different ways. We don't jump into things like this, Tom, and we've enjoyed what you shared, but we're going to take some time and, we'll get back to you. Well, that's all part of I want to think it over. And the key is you must always realize that that's normal. And try this with them. When they say, Tom, we're going to take some time and, think this over and get back to you. Well, just be very warm and say, well, obviously, John, Mary, you guys wouldn't be taking the time to think it over unless there was pretty good interest. Can I have you agree on that? Well, yeah, we are interested. So can you maybe level with me? What do you think it is you need to think over? Would it be the quality of the service that you think I might render? Oh, no, Tom, we're very impressed with you. Maybe it's something I didn't cover properly. No, I think, and they look at each other. This is when they look at each other. No, I think you've covered everything. I just think it makes sense to draft up our feelings. Now, listen to those words. I think it makes sense to just draft up our feelings.
Right.
And then see if it makes sense. Because if it doesn't, we shouldn't do it. But if it does, we should. Agreed? So let's do that, John. Did you have a correct way that we would like you to have on this opportunity? Is it just John, or do you have a middle initial? Now I question, I write down, I'm filling out paperwork. You must fill out paperwork.
Right.
Because they won't say yes until you have something in writing.
Yeah.
And of course, they'll give you stalls. Tom, we're not really sure about this. And you smile and say, oh, I realize that. And most of the happiest people I've served over the years, they felt the same way. So let's just relax, put it all down, and then we can do whatever you feel is best.
Right. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Sliding into almost a feel felt found there, I noticed.
Oh yes, that the feel felt foul. I
I
understand
happen
how
to
you
love that
feel.
one. I'm never going to get rid of feel felt found.
No, yeah, and we shouldn't. And people
Right.
watching us right now
Yeah.
have to realize that these three things, feel, felt, found, are so important. I understand how you feel. That
Mhm.
kind of says I'm agreeing.
Right. Yeah.
Others have felt the same, meaning you're not like any other person.
Right.
I mean, you are like a lot of people. And they found, which is the research they did, why they should say yes and make the investment. Feel, felt, found. I
Yes.
love that.
I love that model too. And the problem is that people want to just jump to the found. They just, wow, Tom, what we found is, well, good, you're the smartest guy in the room, but you're basically telling the customer they're wrong. I don't want to
You're
tell you
right.
you're wrong. You do a feel, felt, found. And I smile and I think maybe in a day and a half, you'll be walking around the lake going, hey, you know what? I think that guy told me I was wrong. But it won't feel as confrontational. Let's flip it a little bit. Let's say we know how to react to it, but there are some strategies to at least take our best shot at keeping that objection of I want to think about it from even coming up. I've got some thoughts, but I want to hear yours.
Yeah, that's really a great thing, is to prepare them for that emotional feeling.
Mm-hmm.
John and Mary, we're just getting started here, and you don't know much about myself or the company, which is going to be a major portion of what we'll share right now. But I do want you to realize that, gosh, over all the years of serving my clientele, I have had so many folks that in the beginning are somewhat reluctant, somewhat hesitant, almost a little nervous, almost a little fearful of making a bad decision, which is perfectly normal. So if that is in your heart right now, wonderful. Because I hope if I do my job and you see the benefits we have to offer, that we can eliminate that from being a challenge. So keep your mind open. That's all I ever ask.
Right.
If you have an open mind and I do my job, we'll have a great situation. And if that happens, it's a win for both of us. Don't you agree?
Yeah, love that. And you notice Tom ends everything with a confirmation question. He doesn't just leave it out there hanging in the wind. He's
That's
asking the
right.
client to weigh in on what they just heard. So that's not an accident, folks. He's doing it every single time he answers a question. And even when we objection handle, Xerox taught me, oh, I'm going to figure out if it's a misunderstanding or drawback, and I'm going to feel, felt, found it, or we can diffuse it. But my third step was always, I'm going to confirm that the objection was addressed and
Right.
put it to bed. Because when a
Right.
client says, yeah, that answers it, you don't have to worry about 10 minutes there going, well, Tom, I'm still hung up on XYZ. But if you don't confirm it, like you're hearing Tom do, that's when it seems to just keep hanging around the room and hanging around. So outstanding. You know what Xerox taught us, one of the things, and I think was one of the greatest lessons that company taught me, and that was to create urgency. So we create trust and we know what that's all about. But we don't just get a sense of what the problem we're trying to fix is. Even if I probably knew the solution before I took the keys out of the car. I want to go deeper into that problem, and if this isn't a nice to have but a need to have, we may be doing some pre work on. I want to think about it down the road. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, definitely. I always assumed that if they're average, and most of them are, they're like all of us, that they are going to have some hesitation, some
Right.
fear, some stalls. And I look at it as if that's just part of the. I don't like the word game,
Right.
but that's part of life.
Right.
Again, I've had people say, "Tom, do you think you could sell anything?" And I've always said I think the fundamentals I teach can be applied to almost anything. But I think I only did well in the profession I had, which was 8 years in real estate, because I loved helping families get into their own home. Having
Right.
someone walk in, and I can't tell you, Rob, the number of people that over the years have told me that they walked into my office. I had one man in San Francisco a few years ago. I was having a break and I was autographing some books, and he came up and he didn't have a book. And I said, "Sir, did you want me to autograph something?" And he says, "No, Tom, I came because my wife and I heard you were having a seminar here. And I, my wife said, "You must thank Tom for what he did for us." And of course, I'm kind of saying, "Well, what?" Well, we walked into your real estate office, and this would be back in the 60s, and we had no money, no real credit, and wanted to just rent a home. And you were so persistent nicely that we shouldn't rent and let someone else take advantage of the equity buildup and so forth, that you convinced us and got us into a long-term investment where we ended up owning the home. And my wife said, "Come thank you," because we paid $19,000 for that 3-bedroom, 2-bath home in the late 60s. And we just retired and we sold it for 450,000, which is the largest part of our financial net worth to enjoy our golden years, all because of you helping us say yes to something we were afraid of. And Rob, those are the type of things that I think have kept me out, still teaching, still doing seminars, still loving the letters and the comments I get, because I just think there's nothing more wonderful than helping a person have a better life.
Right.
And if they have a better life for the small amount of time that you spend with them, or the words you teach them, or the ideas you give them, then you're doing the right thing in your life, which I've tried to do all of my life.
Right.
And it's been fabulous, really has been.
Well, it sure has been. And you just articulated something beautifully, Tom, which I don't think people understand. You don't have to be a salesperson to hear that message we just heard. I wish people would understand that what Tom is saying is that when you help somebody pass their fear of change, which we all have, you're doing one of the kindest things you could do for another human being. And sometimes it's a house, sometimes it's a pack of cigarettes, sometimes it's getting help with a relationship or putting down a bottle of beer. Okay. And I have a beer now and then. I'm just saying it's helping people who know they have an issue, but just don't have that sense of wanting to address it. They're stuck, they're paralyzed. And that's where you whistle. And down the pole comes a well trained salesperson who creates that trust and listens and problem solves and guides them across those decision points. And I'm with you. I almost get choked up talking about it. It's one of the kindest things you can do for another human being. And you just heard a wonderful story of what I can assure Tom has a I don't know, 1,000, 10,000, whatever. Too many stories to count. They keep coming in, and I'm threw one at him before we even started. So, good bully for you, sir. One other thing. When you said, "Can I sell anything?" I smiled and I thought, if I believe in it, I can sell it. You know.
And
Yeah.
oh, you just hit it.
Yeah.
I think your strength comes from total belief.
Yeah.
I've had people say to me at seminars who are looking to think to go into selling. They aren't yet into it. And, they may come up and I might be autographing a book and they might say, "Tom, I'm just going into selling. Where can I make the most money?" And I always say to them, you cannot look at where you're going to make a living on based on income. You must base it on your belief and excitement about what you do. And I've had over the years people that have made millions of dollars with my training say it's the belief that you have in your heart that it's good for them. And because of that, you won't accept a no without first doing a nice way of helping them say yes. And you hit it right on the head. I think the reason I did so well in home sales is because I had a deep belief that people need to own. And there again, as I said, I have people who have hundreds of thousands of dollars of financial reward because I helped them say yes. Because back in the 60s and 70s, we went through a period where homes appreciated so fast that the average working man or woman with an average income could never qualify to buy a home. So for me to help them say yes today, instead of rent for a year and wait till tomorrow was a true blessing that so many people have thanked me for. And it's not being pushy, high pressure, aggressive. You don't need to be. You just have to really have a feeling of loving people
Right.
to where the people feel like he cares about me.
Yeah.
And, I've had people say, Tom, you've made so much money, been so successful. And I said, yeah, it's because I have a love affair with people. And if
Right.
they meet and we get a relationship and they're better, then I'm doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the happiness in life is every day saying, today I did the right thing.
Yeah. What a blessing. All right, I only have two more questions. I got 50, but I'm scolding myself. You got to let Tom go. At some point, you got to let Tom go.
No, no,
But
I'm fine. I'm enjoying this.
well, you're so inspirational. And, I remember my dad's no longer with us, but great salesman and just an amazing salesman and taught me so much. But I remember he would introduce me to his friends when I first became a professional speaker. And he said, "This is my boy, the motivational speaker." And I would always go, "No, Dad, please, not a motivational speaker," because I was a sales trainer, by golly. I came from the Green Berets of sales trainers, Xerox. I didn't want to be labeled the guy who went up the mountain, and made it to the top. I wanted to provide information until I realized, well, there's a mix there. There's a mix of I always wanted to be the heaviest on information, but yep, I'm going to entertain. Sure, I'll inspire. I'll try and motivate. How do you work through that? You're so motivational. How do you kind of separate the two, or can we? I don't know how to do it.
Well, first of all, one thing that's interesting is, you talk about Xerox, and I'm going to say maybe 35, 38 years ago, I had a general manager with Xerox pull me aside and basically said, your training and your teaching is so much what we believe in.
Right.
And we had a great relationship, and I went to numerous Xerox meetings and trained for them. And I always was impressed with their integrity. They're selling with the right feeling and attitude.
Yeah.
But I really feel that you have to, in your heart, just say to yourself that what I'm doing is the right thing for the
Right.
right people.
Yeah.
And I believe in what I do is right. And you have to radiate this feeling of service. And
Right.
I've tried to get people that are thinking of selling to take that S and make it an S in the word serving
Mm,
and not selling.
right.
But we sell when we serve more.
Right.
So the service oriented attitude and the giving more than people expect. And I hope you picked up on that. I tried in any relationship to give more than they expected. Like, for example, here's just a tiny example. But many years ago, when I was a teenager, I would watch my mom and dad come home as, they'd come home after having a nice dinner, and I'd get up and I'd have to go potty. And my mom would be at this little desk and she'd be writing. And of course, I'd say, Mom, gosh, what are you doing? She said, we had the nicest dinner with this couple, and I'm sending them a little note of thanks for the wonderful evening. And I watched my mom, Rob, write thank you notes.
Yeah.
And now this is back when no one did it. Today, no one does it because we have all these electronic transactions. We don't need to handwrite. But I would think today, a handwritten thank you note would mean more than it did even back when I did it. And for you that have my book, this. I've written 10 thank you notes in How to Master the Art of Selling, my first book, that you can just copy and tune up, because there's an art to writing a note. Everything is an art form. It's not luck, wit, charm. You know what you're doing. But I tried my best to send lots of thank you notes. And people used to laugh and tease me because people would come in the office and not be interested at all, but I'd still send them a thank you note for stopping by. Or they would make a call, and I'd end up finding their address and send them a thank you note for the call that turned into follow up, turned into closing a sale. But I really believe little things that people aren't doing today, if you do, you'll separate yourself from the crowd.
Yeah.
And I would say that probably one of the best times ever to do the little things no one is doing is now. And I think the handwritten thank you note that makes it special. And I did crazy stuff. If I had an appointment with you at your home that evening, I'd have a pre-written thank you note. And on the way out of your home, I'd stick it in your mailbox. So the next morning, it's
Oh my
not even
God.
mailed.
That's brilliant.
You
That's
walk to the
brilliant.
mail and, gosh, Tom wrote this thank you note and put it in our mailbox.
Right. Right.
Makes you special.
Yeah.
Always be special.
Right. I love that. I'm showing Tom right now. I just got this one today. I'm the same way. Got a card, read it, and I'm not throwing it away. I can't get rid of it. It sits there for a while. I look at it now and then. It means a great deal. Sometimes I think people don't understand, and who are listening, that look, Tom's written book that sold millions and millions of books. Not only is he telling you to write that note, but that note that comes to him is special. The email is nice, but the note says you really took a moment out. This really mattered. That exceeds expectations. I'm so glad you brought that up. That's just tremendous. And last thing, I wrote a couple thank you notes. I'm not going to name the client. It's a Fortune 500, but my sales cycle, you're going to scold me, Tom, was almost 25 years. But one of the biggest sales I ever got was from a client that I did a little bit of work. I sure wanted more, but I sent that note like you told me. I maintain contact with the client like you told me. I exceeded expectations whenever asked because I did little things like you told me, and in the end, I got the biggest deal that I got in 30 years from that client. And some people say, "Boy, you're lucky, Rob," but Tom's shaking his head and he knows. Those are tactic. Those are process maneuvers. That sure increases our chances of luck.
And you know what? You make luck by following up, following up, following up,
Yeah.
following up till they buy or die.
Right.
And that's the secret.
And then you go for the son or the daughter or whoever's coming. All right, Tom. Last question. Legacy. I think you're kind of you look like you're getting ready to play on the golf course right now. What's the legacy you hope to leave for future generations?
Well, and I'm glad you asked that because that has been a very big concern. And fortunately, a young man who, and it's an interesting story, but he came through my training, I'm going to say 20 years ago, and took my training and built not only the top income in his company, sold more solar systems to homes than anyone ever has. And this young man knows my training and every word I speak and teach. And I'm very fortunate that he is going to be, in essence, taking my place.
Hmm.
And so we've got that lined up because, I think it'd be a shame to not have our how to fundamentals not continue to be taught.
Yeah.
But you'll hear about him. I'll be doing some programs around the world with him. But anyway, I'm trying to let my legacy continue
Yeah.
to make sure that people who want to make money in the art of selling and love what they do have a teacher, a trainer, a motivator, and a how-to person. But motivation is important in success, but I think focus and commitment to your short and long-term goals is one way you will get motivated. And so I just wish motivation to all of you, and thank you that have taken the time to let Rob and I come into your lives with a short message. And hopefully it opens your minds to a larger message,
Yeah.
which would be good for a lot of folks.
You bet. Well, it's been a pleasure, an honor to talk to you.
Thank you.
I take a deep breath. How do people get a hold of you? Your website?
Yes, they can go to Amazon.com, and Amazon is marketing all my CDs and books and all my products. And one thing they've done, knowing that I'm slowing my life down, is they've reduced them down tremendously. So anyone that liked our little short message can either go to Tom Hopkins International and you'll see all my stuff in my website, or you can go to Amazon and take advantage of what they're offering. And hopefully, I can be a part of your life, which I would love to be. If I can help you help others have a better life, then we're having a home run.
You
Don't you
bet.
agree?
I totally agree, and you've said it all. You've done it all. I love one of the best news of this podcast is to hear that Tom Hopkins is going on and on and on. He's fashioning up the Hopkins clone. Is moving.
Yes.
So anyway, Tom, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for the conversation.
All the best to you, Rob, and keep doing what you're doing. People need it.
You bet. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time. Until then, everybody, stay safe.